Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Spirit Reflections Around the Fire Conversation series. This is episode 67 with our friend John Abigana tonight. Good evening, John. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for
Good.
having me.
Pleasure to have you here. Welcome, everybody that's going to start joining us. I'm going to put our opening vignette while we wait for people to receive the notification that we have just gone on the air. So this is a little 30-second moment for us to get into the spirit of the fireside conversations, and we'll be right back in 30 seconds. So, for those that are coming here for the first time to Spirit Reflections, this is a channel that we created in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic with the goal to interview artists, philosophers, scientists, people of all religious backgrounds about their personal and spiritual journeys, the tools that they found along the way, and how those tools have shaped the work that they do and the people that they are. All of our live conversations are on our YouTube channel, Spirit Reflections. You'll see a lotus flower there. We encourage you to like and subscribe, make your comments during the live conversation as well as when it stays recorded on the channel. Send us your suggestions of future guests and future topics that you'd like us to have explore here on the channel. And tonight we're going to be talking about music, one of my favorite topics, with a dear friend from California who is a musician, who is a conductor, and a longtime music educator. So before we mention, I give the word to John, I'm going to just read his bio here for those that have never seen him on the channel. After 37 years in the California educational system, John retired in 2012, and he's now living with his wife, Carol, that lovely lady we just saw in the 30-second spot, in the town of Southbridge, Massachusetts. Retirement, being short-lived, found him back in education as a one-semester sabbatical, and he went back to Springfield College, and he's currently enjoying his ninth year teaching at Marianapolis Preparatory School in Connecticut, where he teaches performance classes in music. And as a California music educator, John's ensemble have performed internationally in Canada and Europe and the United States in places like the Kennedy Center, Carnegie Hall, the United Nations, and other amazing halls. As a conductor, John has a very long roster of places that he has conducted. And I'm not going to read all of them, but there's several bands and orchestras, many in the West Coast. And he has also been the junior camp band and chorus director for the Donner Mine Music Camp, and for 10 years, director of the orchestra for summer music at Stanislaus. Did I get that right?
Yes.
And his instrument is tuba, which is hard to see. And he performs the tuba with the Connecticut Valley Symphony Orchestra in West Hartford, Connecticut. So we're going to talk about how the music has been a part of John's life, how it first entered his life, and how has spirituality worked its way through his musical craft with the work he does as an educator. So we're going to discuss things like faith, like hope, like beauty, like music. So we encourage you to sit around this mythical fire here, look up in the sky, open up our hearts, get our minds ready to have a nice communion around music, spirituality, and all the good things that are in our path today. So John, please take it away. Take us to the beginning of your life, how you first started in this path.
Well, I found out that there is a lot of areas in which really influenced what I wanted to do. Probably the earliest I was able to track down was, and I thought about this for a long time, my cousin Florentino bought an album and left it at our house in Daly City, California. And there was something that he played, and I watched him when he listened. He stared at the record and just closed his eyes. So something was happening. And then I learned how to put the stereo on and I started listening to it. The album actually was a Herbert von Karajan version of Beethoven's Seventh Symphony, and with the Vienna Symphony. And believe it or not, it only cost 98 cents.
I love that.
Yeah, and when I put the needle down, I listened to it, and there was something that, to use your word, sparked, something that got my attention. I don't know if it was just the opening notes. The opening notes was just a major chord. Bam. That's all it was. And it got my attention. Why did I dive into it? Because of that. And it was just a beautiful sound. And I tried to dig deeper. And then as the first, you're playing my favorite movement, by the way. When you listen to in that first movement, you can actually hear some dissonances going on. And that really affected me to the point that I think I listened to that album every day before I went to school as a kindergartner.
A kindergarten, so you were just how old? 4 or 5 years old?
5 years old. It's just the music was just, well, as you're listening to the second movement right here, you just hear this beauty, total beauty, and it's simple, nothing there. So what was sparking me was not the melody, because that was fairly easy, but it was the harmonies, what he did in a harmonic structure. That was the first time that I got it. Now, as I fast forward to, I was about 10 years old, I was able to take a musical instrument at my school.
Okay.
And what I did was I chose the saxophone, and I don't know why. My father said, "Would you play saxophone?" And I said, okay. My father didn't play. My mother didn't play. My father had a pretty good ear. My mother could sing, but they didn't play in the normal setting. And so I picked the saxophone, and I learned a song on the very first day. So I used the school instrument, and I brought it home, and I played it for. I played the sax. I played a song for them, which was very, very simple. It was only 3 notes long, but it was simple enough that there was a phrase, there was an ending for it. The song was called "Go Tell Aunt Rhody."
Right, I remember that from high school.
Yeah, and it was just simple. And so I played it like a normal kid, no tonguing, no technique whatsoever. It was just pushing in that. And I played it, and then my mother found one of our golden books. It was like a small reader, and you can get. And in the 4th grade, said, "Oh, here's the poem." And then I read the poem for the very first time. And it's situated for kids. The first line, "Go tell Aunt Rhody." The second line, "Go tell Aunt Rhody." The third line, "Go tell Aunt Rhody." And the fourth line, which got me, says, "The old gray goose is dead." I went,
That's hilarious.
It traumatized me. And so the following week, I had to go and play it for the teacher. The teacher was Richard Snyder, in Daly City, California. And I played it for him. But instead of going, ha, 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 I played it, da, dee, da, 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 bum, dee, da, da, da. And as soon as the last line came up, I went, da, 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 dee, da, da.
Slow down a bit.
Slow down and just let it drift off. I think he called my house the day after, talked to my mother. He says, "Tell him to come back in the next couple of days," and he gave me a better saxophone because he noticed something what I was doing.
Yeah,
that's the first time that ever happened. So that was those two probably was my were my big
Sort of
sparks. Yeah, yeah.
initiatory sparks in music, so to speak.
In the fifth grade, I still had Richard Snyder, and we kept on going. I moved from alto to tenor saxophone, uh, and it was requested that I get my own tenor saxophone. And my parents, there was no money whatsoever, but so they had to do a payment,
An
payments every
installment
month,
payment, yeah. Yeah.
installment, yeah. And so they bought my tenor saxophone, which I still play, by the way. It's a
Nice.
pre World War II tenor saxophone.
Wow.
It's really, really super old, and I love it. I'm not going to get rid of it. Um, and, um, and I played that for the whole year, so that was really good. It was at that time I said, you know what? I like Richard Snyder. He's really good. He expects a lot. I'm going to be a music teacher. Now that's a
So
good
that's when
thing.
you made the decision in high school through the influence of Richard Snyder, your music
Fifth
teacher
grade.
in high school.
Fifth
Fifth
grade.
grade.
Fifth grade. I was 11 years old. Um, that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing that I was able to make a career choice. I guess if
Very
that's
early, yep.
crazy. I don't think anybody would have done that, but it focused me too much. Instead of looking at life this way, I started looking at life pretty much tunnel vision because that's what I was going to do. And as time goes on, I could go on with all my teachers. I'll never forget them. They were such an influence
Yeah.
on every aspect. Richard Snyder, Byron Ogden was my middle school teacher. Richard Larson was my high school teacher. Robert Zabo was my college teacher. He taught me. He gave me the most information how to extract emotion from music, and he was a
And John,
trombone
for
player.
those that are watching us that don't know these names, give us a little color on them, on those teachers.
Richard Snyder was primarily a violinist, and yet when he played the valve trombone, and he also played a clarinet, and a very good clarinet player he was. So he had three different instruments. I'm going, I want to do that.
Right.
Um, Byron Ogden was also a string player, but he had to teach band where I was. He did do string orchestra as well, but his
Okay.
primary thing was middle school. With Byron Ogden, he would introduce things like key signatures, and he would not say, now this is this and this is this. He just put a sentence in there. Okay, you have three sharps. That means you're in the key of A. You have, four sharps. That means you're in the key of E. And so that clicked in my head. One other thing that he allowed me to do is that I was able to notice around the different players. And I noticed that when I played F sharp on my tenor saxophone, I had to hold my second finger down. And I looked over at the trumpets who are also playing an F sharp, and they had their second valve down. I said, okay, wonder what F is. I have to do this on my right hand while holding up the horn that way. Then I looked over at the trumpets. They had their first valve down. Okay, well, 1 and 2 is E. I looked over, 1 and 2 is E. And so I learned the fingerings just by observing. Then I noticed that there are 7 positions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 on a trumpet. There are 7 positions on a trombone. They all correlated, and I went, wow, that's pretty good. Clarinet had a hard time with because it's basically two different fingering patterns. They're separated by not an octave, but it was there. Once you realize that was going on, I learned how to play recorder. Then I noticed the clarinet recorder in the lower register was matches what the clarinet was doing in the lower register. Upper register matches my saxophone. So once you learn that, throughout the course of my 7th and 8th grade, I learned how to play all those instruments that were in the band
Nice.
at the middle
So
school.
you learned all of these different instruments, but I think more importantly for those that are watching, for those that have never had the experience of playing in a band or in an orchestra, having that community feeling while you're making music together, Describe a little bit of some of the highlights that you remember from those years for you. What about?
Uh, Probably when I got into high school, something those are more sparks, and the sparks became more powerful. Um, I was playing. My teacher at that time was Richard Larson. He was a jazz trumpet player, and but he taught just about everything. He's taught the strings, he taught the band, and taught jazz. Jazz, the word jazz couldn't have been used in the 1960s
Yes.
because jazz had a bad name for it.
Yeah.
So it was
The
we
vulgar
they called
term
it,
at the time, yeah.
yes. So they called it a dance band. And
Dance band.
sometimes you can't even use the word dance. Back in the 20s, dance
Right.
was forbidden. So and there were no jazz majors. There was just music majors. You played everything, and
Right.
so. But Richard Larson gave us a song. It was called uh, "Deep River Suite." I remember that now. "Deep River Suite." It's an old piece. It's based on the hymn da 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 ba bum da bum ba ba ba. It's a beautiful tune. And I had just this one note that I couldn't wait for. It was an F. It was just an F. And I played. It was the common tone amongst the whole chordal, the chordal harmony that was going on. I had the common tone. I was the only one that had the common tone. So my note, I was able to blend and listen to all these chords going on around me, and I couldn't wait for that part to happen, because now you're listening to everybody else and you relate to everybody else. So when you talk about ensemble, that was the first really ensemble thing that I just had a great time with. That was wonderful. In high school, to be honest with you, I started doing some strange things, and that just helped my ear. The people at the time, the Beatles were strong, and so people wanted to learn how to play the Beatles. So and the way it worked out, the albums, they only cost, I think at that time, $2 a plus. And so I got, for instance, in my senior year, the Beatles' "Let It Be" album, which was the one that had to be put together because the music wasn't finished. And somebody wanted me to teach them "Let It Be." I said,
Okay.
"Okay, what are you gonna do for me if I'm gonna teach you how to do this?" I said, "I'm gonna give you the album." I still have it,
Nice.
and I taught them how to play "Let It Be," but I just took it home, listened to it. I was able to put it on the piano, take it back, teach them the next day. They got it. I got an album, and so that's how I started making part of my albums together. Is that I was teaching them a song out of that album, and they would give me the album. So that's how that works. So that was my ear training. I learned how to play piano in high school. Not well. I was I'm still am more of a
Mary
functional.
comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words
Little
of
taste of
wisdom.
it.
Yeah.
Let it be.
What's so funny about that? The reason why they wanted to learn "Let It Be" because of the words Mother Mary, and in the
Ah,
60s. In the 60s, y'all thought it was going to be marijuana. I said, no, it's not. His mother's name was Mary. Come on, Mother Mary.
oh,
you know,
kids.
yeah, they started doing all that stuff here too. So the ensemble wise and coping through high school, I think the biggest problem that I had in high school was my senior year, um, and I assumed the counselors really had me figured out. I mean, he's going to be a music major. That's where he's going to go. He knows what to do. So they left me alone. I
I
didn't
see.
know. I did not know how to apply for colleges. I did apply for at San Jose State a scholarship, but I didn't apply to the college, and I didn't get the scholarship. And it wasn't until the March of that year, a month after the scholarship, that I didn't get. They said, "We noticed that you didn't apply to San Jose State. We want you to apply to San Jose State." And clueless me, I did. it was a $20 fee to put the application in. So I got the $20, put it in the envelope, and my application, which was filled out in pencil, I'm sorry to say that, but that's exactly what it was. Clueless me. I filled it out in pencil and I sent it in. I got accepted the day before registration.
Amazing. I want to stop here and ask anybody who's watching who is a student of John's or was a student of John's or is a friend of John's, leave your testimonial about John. Why is he a great guy? Why is he a great teacher? Share some experience if you're watching on the comments so that we can have some interaction going on. John, back to you. Accepted at San Jose State the day before registration.
The day before registration, little did I know that registration was not computerized. So you've got what they call IBM cards, and you had to go find the teachers and ask them that they will allow you in the class. So I was able to do that, but it took me from 7 o'clock in the morning until about 5:30 at night.
Oh my God.
And so it took me that long to find it, because if they don't want you in class, you have to find another class to fill that gap.
Right.
Or you have to erase something so you can get another class. It was just crazy. Anyway, so it was pretty tough. My senior year, I was not really focused at all. At San Jose State, that's when I met Robert Zabo. His background was that he was a member of the New York Pro Musica, which was a very, very they had a lot of recordings out. They were very forthcoming. I've heard of them, and I had no idea. It was great to do that. He had a great sense of humor, but a fine trombone player. He could make his trombone sound like a bassoon,
Wow.
and just that beautiful tone quality. He had this wonderful vibrato, and so I learned tuba through his playing trombone, and I learned how to play in a more lyrical style. So instead of concentrating on like a short note, I just cut the note short without using my tongue to cut the note off. So the short notes are just going duh. That's it, not dut, because eventually that you're tonguing it twice, you know. Right. Vernon Reed was also at San Jose State. He was basically he graduated with his doctorate. He went to Eastman School of Music.
So I noticed that you're really highlighting all of the teachers who played a major influence in your life.
They are part of me.
Right.
They are all part of me. I have others that are there too. Robert Zabel, Vernon Reed, Dwight Cannon was one of the trumpet players in a big band. And Taiki Zess was a composer, primarily Greek Orthodox music. Charlene Archibek was a vocal teacher. She taught me be organized no matter what. Roger Muzzy was just great to know. And then my last one, who was also an elementary teacher, but probably the greatest musician I have heard. He basically said, without musicianship, it's nothing. You need to be a musician first. And that was a gentleman by the name of Gail Royer. Now, his big thing was that he was the director of a drum and bugle corps that I was in. And he was wonderful to work with. And if you got it, you got it. You know, it's one of those things. And so all of these things really came into part of who I am. And so they were all just, it's me. That's what brought me up.
It's in your DNA.
Yeah, yeah.
And if other than their musicianship and their musical skills, was there something about them that they shared that was non-musical, but was somehow communicated spiritually through the interactions musically, that you can share something here?
We discussed this about being schizophrenic on the podium. Vernon Reed, he was a person who demanded the best out of you every rehearsal. Demanded.
As a conductor.
As a
and when you
conductor.
stepped on the podium. Okay.
There's something about the senior year, both in high school and in college. And in college, senior year, I was losing focus. I didn't know. I was, to the point is, do I do this? Can I still do this? Vernon Reid, I made an error. I sped up just a little bit on a song. It was Enigma Variations. It was the
Elgar.
It was when it goes into one in the last movement, when it's going really fast, and the whole note is one count. Oh man! And I sped it up just a little bit. He stopped and got in my face. He just walked through the orchestra and got in my face. He just looked at me and says, "Why aren't you focused today?" And I was getting red because number one, I was embarrassed, but I was mad at him. And I started taking off after rehearsal was done. And I felt this hand on my shoulder. And he looked around my shoulder, looked at me and says, "Are you okay? Dr. Reid, are you okay?" You were just screaming at me. He says, "I know that, but I want you to know that I care. So what was going on? What took your focus?"
Right.
Earlier that day, I went to an interview for a high school position, and I was told point blank that no matter what happens, we're not going to hire anybody from San Jose State. We're going to hire somebody from Southern California only. I told that to Dr. Reid, and he just said, "I would like for you to sit down in my office, and I'm going to make a phone call." And he called that person, and he is totally into this guy that answered the phone. He says, "How dare you tell this person you're not going to hire him?" And he was saying, "He does everything. He can do everything. You just cut him out. How dare you say that about our students?" After that, I was totally into Dr. Vernon Reid. That's who he was.
Beautiful.
That's who he was.
We've got some cool feedback here from Brett, your son. Still the best music teacher I've ever had. I know I'm biased because he's my father, but he's still the musician and teacher I've always wanted to be, and his legacy's passed down to my students every day. Love you, Dad. Awesome, Brett. Thanks for leaving this comment. Kevin, Mr. Way's a wonderful storyteller of music. I'm constantly learning so much about the backstory on songs John has his students perform. Thanks, Kevin. Karen, Matza, totally agree, Brett. He's inspirational. Corey Bassett, Mr. A, hope all is well. Thank you for being an amazing teacher and even better man. You're the best. And Susan Fox, Mr. A has this amazing presence about him. His passion and love for music inspires you to be the best musician you can be. It was under his instruction that I really learned to feel the music I played. They aren't just songs, they're stories. Awesome, Susan. Love it. Comment away, John.
I love the Diaz family. Susan. Susan. I'm a little flustered by a lot of these. The kids are, they've always been my soul. I've been asked, I mentioned this earlier, I've been asked, "What church do you go to?"
What's your religion? Yeah, right.
What's my religion? What church do you go to? The first time I did that, I was back at my very first school, and I ended up being the choir teacher. I said, if I was going to go and worship, I don't want to be a choir teacher. I want to go and worship. And so I need to keep that separate because my family, and what am I going to do? Work? They already see me working, and yet I had to stop that. So what came out was so spontaneous, but it turned out to be, for me, the truth. I go to church. My church in my first school, which was Dixon High School, was room 401. And that was my church. The school my second that I spent 25 years at was Woodland High School. That was 701. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, those were my churches. And I would go there and many times before anybody's there and just meditate. Just wait. I just want to see if I can get through the day with a positive attitude. Sometimes I don't. I'm human.
Of course.
But most of the time, that was my reflective place. That was my quiet place. That was my noisy place. I kept the room open because I want the kids to have a safe place. And that was a constant thing. Then I can interact with them not as a teacher, but they can share with me about the music they like. I can share them with music that I like, and so it was just wonderful to be a part of a community where the kids and the teacher. Well, that's the other part here too. You know this, Fred, is that what other subject in a school in which the teacher has to perform and rehearse?
That's a great point.
Every day. The drama teachers don't. They direct. I mean, you do this, you do this, you do this. They're not out there doing it. They don't have to do that in performances. But yeah, we do. That means we have to practice on top of lesson plans. And so that's a whole different ball game. So we still got to practice, and sometimes it's difficult. With me playing multi instruments, that's a lot of practice, and sometimes I just don't make the practice.
And in your career teaching music, John, have you had experiences with students who are going through tough times and that they found in music a source of solace, comfort, a place to regroup?
You brought me back to a real tough time. When I was in Woodland, we had a death in our music group. It was a kid who wanted to learn how to play saxophone because he was always in the band room and he just wanted to learn. And he learned from another kid who walked up to me and says, "I have to be in this room. I have to be here." And so they both were part of it. And he taught him what he knew about saxophone, and we brought him in there. Well, this one kid passed away. I don't want to get into details, but he passed away. The teachers and the administration said, "Send them to the library, send your kids to the library because we have counselors there." I said, "They're not going to be there. They are not going to be there." And the principal was basically ordering me, "Let's get them over to the library." I said, "Kevin, you have to come with me. I know where they are." I opened the door to the music room. They were all there. They weren't going to go anyplace. Bring your counselors here. Because this was the place where they were all together. They all stuck together. And it proves that room was a church.
Yeah.
It proves that was a church. And to say that, which was very difficult to say in a public school where there's a separation church and state.
Sure.
But in my case, I justified it, if that's possible, I get to see God in their eyes. And when they perform, they gave me what they had, the best that they could have as an individual, because no one was taking private lessons in my schools. No, very few. Mm-hmm. But they gave their best. And what more can we ask? What more can we ask? There was a time when we played an extremely difficult piece, and this was I had a small wind ensemble. It got the music department got so big we had to have 3 bands. So we had the top band was a wind ensemble, and we were going to play at Carnegie Hall, and the music that we had was all difficult. And with that class that's only 55 minutes long, we had a quick rehearsal. It's not much time. So you have to be ready to go. So we were playing, and the time just flew by. No one was moving. And at the end of it, we all knew there was something about it. And you could see it in their eyes. We're not stopping. We're not stopping. We're going. We're going. We're going. Yeah, we were on top. They were leaning forward. They were. The music was moving them. Don't move because of the music. You're moved by the music. And then when we stopped, we heard applause. School had been closed. It ended 20 minutes before.
Wow. And
yet students had the respect to come in and listen. No sound whatsoever. They applauded.
Spark.
And then the band looked over and went, "Whoa, school's out?" They just didn't know.
Sense of time. And I'm sure you've had the experience too of being on that stage in Carnegie Hall. I had the pleasure of playing there twice, and it was unforgettable. Share with us what your experience was with the kids.
Well, they were supposed to walk on stage. This was during the dress rehearsal. We had 20 minutes to do a dress rehearsal to try to get used to the room. And you can't get used to the room in 20 minutes. So they open up the back doors, and so we can walk in. They walk in, and the first kids stop because they see there's nothing but red chairs that go up to the rafters up in the top. They just stopped. They had to be pushed. Let's go. We got to get going. We got to get going. So, and for me, standing on the spot where Peter Tchaikovsky, right? where Peter Tchaikovsky conducted. Wow, and so it was an experience. And they came off the stage, and they were silent. I thought maybe they felt bad about something like that. There were some mistakes, there were some errors and stuff like that, including me. And they just looked at each other, and they were quiet. All of a sudden, one person said, "I gotta hug somebody." They went,
"Oh, that's great!"
And all of a sudden, they just all broke down. We were supposed to get out in the audience. We didn't make it. They were beautiful. They were just there, and to see that, I can't even put that into words. That was just wonderful.
I remember in my high school orchestra when the last note sounded, I was in the second violins, and we went like this. The reverberation on the stage into the audience and back rang in my heart, and it was a moment I'll never forget. We looked up at the conductor, everybody looked at each other, and we said, "This is over." And the applause came thundering in afterwards.
That's the look. That's exactly what I saw in you just now. Yeah, because you reflected back there. That's exactly what it was. Yeah. And all I ask him to do is just pretend that this is the most important thing in your life. And then afterwards, we're done.
Sorry, go ahead, finish, and then we're done.
I just basically said, pretend that this is the best thing that's going to happen in your life, and when we're off the stage, forget about it.
Look how beautiful, John. Duffy writes, "Troy and I are so grateful you were our music teacher. You taught our son Corey how to play the drums. You changed lives with music." Beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you, Duffy.
Hey, Duffy.
How about the therapeutic aspects of music now, John? If we go beyond the education route and go into the therapy aspects of it, what are some of your experiences in that field? You could share.
I was president of the California Band Directors Association, and during that time, this thing that came out, the Mozart effect.
Yes, in the 90s.
And I got really interested what it was, and the whole term of Mozart really wasn't about it was about its music, but it wasn't about Mozart per se. It was brainwaves of a 3-year-old matching their brains, their brainwaves exploded to Mozart's, I think it was the third piano concerto in D. I think that's the piece, and the kids just kind of went from that point. They realized that language is like music, or music is like language, and that maybe if you're looking for a bilingual type of educational system, maybe the 3-year-olds should be starting that, or preschool starting bilingual music, and not wait to high school for that to happen, because that's not an ultimate time. Also, one of the people said that, well, it makes smart kids. Well, Harvard University actually proved that wrong.
Right.
But if you talk to the admissions people from Harvard University, they would take a student that had been in music probably before that somebody else would. So why is that a thing? But the Mozart effect is real. It's real. We all listen to music in a certain way. It affects you. It goes on. And I keep on thinking, there was a student of mine, going back to students, who is now a physician in Chicago. She's well known. She was actually featured on Good Morning America, but they were asking her. Jennifer Austin Dr. Jennifer Austin is her name. And she relishes the fact that she took music because it helped her focus. Before that even happened, I was doing my own experiments. Every time I go into a hospital or meet a physician or meet a nurse, I would ask, what instrument did you play? And they'll say, piano. Then they'll turn around and goes, how did you know? I said, because I know. I had
the majority of medical staff had played an instrument.
Why is that? And it's kind of crazy. And if you're doing a study, mine's very prejudiced. I'm going, the first lesson that you have in music is how to put that instrument together and how to take it apart carefully so you don't break it. And so the care of the instrument.
Yep.
So you had to work at it. And then the lesson started. And what happens with the lesson? Well, the lesson was, you need to go home and get this and have it prepared for next week. Now tell me, don't you want a physician that will care for you? And if they don't know what's wrong with it, they will find out.
Right.
And not just throw a pill at you. I think that's very powerful right there. On why. Am I really going nuts over this thing? Yeah, but yeah, probably.
So, we could definitely speculate that it increases people's levels of empathy and care when they've been in a community of concertizing together for so many years, and they're able to share something that's so unique about the musical experience together that it translates into other areas of their life without them even realizing it, right?
Yes. A friend of mine had his choice. A full ride at Stanford in music, or a full ride in pre-law at Stanford, and always came out with this: can I be a musician and practice law on the side? Well, no, you can't. You just can't. Can I be a lawyer and practice music on the side? I think you can, and I think that's part of that. Ask the physicians on why they played an instrument, and they would say, I feel that it focuses me. Sometimes before surgery, they're the surgeon, they'll play some piano, or they'll play their violin.
Or they'll have music playing in the operating room for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to have shoulder surgery, and my anesthesiologist was a trumpet major at Juilliard. And this was in Woodland. And when he graduated from Juilliard, he went into med school. And because of the focus. And so he went right into med school. He passed the MCAT first time through, got into med school, became a very very well-known anesthesiologist. And I said, and I looked at him and said, "Oh, you're on my curriculum." He says, "I'm in your what? Yeah, you are in my curriculum. I talk about you all the time in my classes about people who go in the medical field who are musicians." He said, "Oh, that's good." Then I started telling trumpet jokes, and then that's when I forgot where I was. I was gone because the surgery had to start. So it was,
even though the medical staff, and that's something that I would love to see more of in the world, that hospitals, nursing homes, clinics have hallways with live musicians walking up and down as often as nurses, social workers, and other medical staff, because that used to be the case in the ancient world, and we kind of lost that a little bit. We're definitely recovering this sensibility towards music in the medical world. But even if they're not playing their instruments, the level of care and empathy that they've built through their musical practice and the focus, they're imparting that in some way as they're doing their medicine.
Absolutely. I've seen a lot of that happening. A lot of the nursing homes that I've been to, they have a cassette player or they're playing music on. That's not really the idea. Live, bring people in. There are people out there, and like I said, music therapy is big. They ask you during a operation, what kind of music do you listen to? Well, you're not going to physically hear it, but your subconscious is going to pick it up. Definitely. And it relaxes you. And also it relaxes the person who's performing the surgery. So it allows them to feel what's happening as well.
We had a really brilliant encounter with Michael Rosado Bennett on Spirit Reflections. The interview is on our YouTube channel. He's the director of the documentary that went viral and won the Sundance Film Festival in 2013's Audience Choice Award, called Alive Inside, where he takes headphones that are pre-programmed with the patient's fondest musical selections from their childhood, which their family of the patients helps to program, because these are patients that are suffering from advanced stage Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, complete memory loss, and dementia. And the whole documentary is a series of reactions of these patients once you put the headset and begin to play the music of their childhood. They light up in a way that makes every hair in your body raise and every tear in your eyes you just can't stop weeping. And it just shows the beautiful effect of it. So it's a great interview to check out on our channel.
Are you familiar with the group called Jan and Dean? It was a surf rock group back in the 60s. Well, Jan got into a bad car accident and really had severe brain damage. And when I worked with them as a stage manager with them at a fair in California, I was able to talk to Jan, but I had to wait. Sometimes he right in the middle of a sentence he'll fall asleep, and Dean would just say, "Just wait for a minute. Okay, now 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now," and he opens back up and continues the sentence. So that's how severe his brain damage was. But he knew every lyric. He still sang. He knew every lyric, and he still sang in time. Miracle? That's your brain doing that, and the brain is an unbelievable conduit. That's the reason why there was a great thing on YouTube in which they put headphones on a Alzheimer patient who was a ballet dancer.
Yes.
And then she started dancing.
Yep.
To
the Swan
as she
Lake.
heard, she just did the hands. Yes. Yep. And that's tears in your eyes type of thing. It's powerful. But that's something that's very powerful to know.
And let's leave the ending of our conversation, John, to the conducting experience. You mentioned conduit, and we know so much of conducting has to do with being that conduit. Do you recall some experiences when you were on the podium and you felt that spark, and some of those things that you can share with us to feel?
It's something that I learned, is that you don't have to stop and talk. Sometimes you can teach while you're moving, or sometimes you could teach by letting them play. I've seen concerts in which the conductor just stopped and just let them play. There's a brilliant thing with Leonard Bernstein doing it, also with Christoph Eschenbach doing it. But I think to see that experience, to have that experience of just letting them play. And, I would do this and I would just say, keep on playing. And I put my hands down, keep on playing, play, play, play. And I just look around and keep on going. And they would do that. That's really rewarding because they have to do all the things and they're on their own. I'm not helping them whatsoever. They're listening to stay in tune. They have to listen. They have to watch each other. They're paying attention to their music and at the same time looking over at somebody else that can be synchronized and when their notes are going. An advanced group could do that. Some of the smaller groups or more inexperienced students cannot. Even some adult groups just can't do that. They want to have that guidance throughout the entire thing. My favorite thing to I watched Seiji Ozawa do Enigma Variations and on Nimrod, downbeat, and that was it. And he stood like this, and no movement. He just gave him the tempo, and they took off on it. Now, they were fighting him. Sometimes he had to do this.
Wow.
That's all he did because he wanted absolutely. It's like Eric Satie. Eric Satie was an expressionist without expression. Without expression.
It's very subtle. Very subtle.
Yeah. And so, but on Nimrod, the orchestra wanted to fight him because they felt that, dee-da-ba-bum. Yeah, and you're going, wow. And he's holding them back. And that friction became so emotional. That was out of my seat.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
That must have been a moment.
It absolutely was. Yeah. It was rehearsal. Yeah.
Oh, it was a rehearsal.
That was a rehearsal that they would have open dress rehearsals. And so we went. It was just beautiful.
Well, I'm trying to see if I can find Seiji Ozawa doing Enigma Variations on YouTube.
Oh, you can't.
But it's not coming up.
Yeah, this is with the San Francisco Symphony. That was a long time ago. That was a long time. It's back in 74. Yeah.
Well, listen, I wanted to just thank you for your time being here with us, John. And as a music educator that you are, as a musician that I am, I have to say that if it weren't for my high school music teacher, if it weren't for my violin professor in college, or the orchestra teacher I had in college, I wouldn't have continued music. And there's never a day when I don't pick up my violin where I don't remember something that they have given me during those many endless hours of rehearsal, private practice. And so I just want to thank you, admire, respect you, and cherish you for what you continue to do and have been doing for so long, because I know you're planting some very important seeds in the lives and hearts of these musicians, that even if they don't turn out to be professional musicians, as we were talking in the medical field, they're going to be taking those very precious seeds of musicianship and apply them in law, in other professions, and make it the whole experience more humanizing, more empathetic, more kind, more caring, softer and gentler, I'm pretty sure, thanks to the music. So wanted to thank everybody for being here. If you have any final words to share with us, and we will close our broadcast.
Keep playing, keep singing, keep music alive. It's not going to go away. I'll be honest with you, as an educator, which is our main thing. I don't do a whole lot of conducting right now because I did most of my conducting on the West Coast, but I had 2 great grandchildren on the East Coast, and that's the reason why I moved. What we teach beyond the curriculum, and we cannot justify it. What we teach, we cannot justify, but we do teach love. We do teach beauty. We do teach ugly We do teach sad. We do teach happy. We do teach those emotions within everything that we do. In the curriculum, it's hard to explain that, but yet here we are still with music programs all across the country. I wish people would see that and bring them back if they're cut and demand it.
Yeah, yeah. There's an amazing gentleman named Jose Antonio Abreu, the founder of the Venezuelan Youth Orchestra and Chorus Systems, which became the largest public national education system of music in the world. And he used to say, imagine if every town, every little village, every school had its orchestra and chorus. This is a culture that is so avant-garde that it's not 22nd, 23rd, 24th century. It's eternity.
Yes, eternity.
It's eternity.
And,
so with
and
those,
we used to have it.
Yeah, and I'm optimistic about the future. I think the more crises we go through and the more pain and suffering we go through, we inevitably will turn to the arts and to music more organically to find sources of comfort, sources of inspiration, and renewed sense of humanity. And so that's when ministers of the church called music like yourself will be there to help us through it. And Fran Martinez says, good job, brother. And John says, totally enjoyed his interview. We know how important music is on the earth plane, and even more important and beautiful in the afterlife. Absolutely, John. And we get the echoes of that afterlife music through the hands of some of the most beloved composers from yesterday and today. So with that, we close. We always like to say, we used to play the song, John, but I had to stop doing that because otherwise copyright laws would knock down my channel. But it's that 1969 song, Age of Aquarius, where it says, let the sun shine in. Let the sun shine in. So may that be the mantra for us today and always. Thank you very much, everybody. And we'll see you soon on another episode Around the Fire on Spirit Reflections. Take care.